House Democrats are hoping to vote today on two major pieces of President Biden's agenda, but right now, all they have is hope. They've been holding a vote open since just after 8 this morning while negotiations continue. Moderate House Democrats are refusing to vote until they get a Congressional Budget Office report outlining exactly what the bill will cost, but that is not expected to come for several weeks. CBS News radio correspondent Steve Dorsey reports.
House Democratic leaders want to pass President Biden's $1.75 trillion social spending plan, but they're still wrangling votes. The plan includes universal pre-K, an extension of the child care tax credit, plus tax credits and investments in clean energy, health care, and funding for affordable housing.
I'm glad to stand with the American people and families as we create for them a very bright day.
Democrats also included 4 weeks of paid family leave in the bill and reforms to lower the cost of some prescription drugs.
With over 2,000 pages of text, Speaker Pelosi is conducting closed-door negotiations, bypassing the Congressional Budget Office report, and ramming through this legislation without full transparency on the true cost and economic impact this would have to the American people.
Republicans oppose the bill and are trying to delay the vote with procedural motions on the House floor.
I move to adjourn.
President Biden has been working the phones to make sure both the spending plan and $1 trillion infrastructure bill pass in the House today.
I'm asking every House member of the House of Representatives to vote yes on both these bills right now. Send the infrastructure bill to my desk. Send the Build Back Better bill to the Senate.
The spending plan needs every Democrat's vote to pass the Senate, and West Virginia's Joe Manchin is still a holdout.
I worked clear through the week, as you know, the weekend, went up to the House and visited with him and all that, and thought we had some pretty good understanding on things, and we'll get this back on track.
Manchin says he's concerned the spending plan will add to the country's debt. Steve Dorsey, CBS News, the White House.
And CBS News congressional correspondent Nikole Killion joins me now with more. Hi, Nikole. So what do we know about President Biden's outreach to lawmakers?
Well, he said that he intends to call lawmakers and that he will be calling lawmakers today. That is something he also did last night. In fact, he called a variety of members to urge them to vote yes. So clearly that, arm twisting and arm wrangling continues from the White House. There have been White House officials up here on the Hill as well. At this point, really seeking to convince kind of those last remaining holdouts, many of them moderate, some of them who have been wanting what is called a CBO score, Congressional Budget Office score, so that they can have a full picture of how much this bill will actually cost. There's the price tag, but there's also, the analysis in terms of how this will play out over several years. And so that's what many lawmakers have been asking for. Some of them have met with the Speaker over this. So that was the holdup this morning in terms of trying to get some of those final members on board, even though a score like that could take a few more days, if not at least a week, to be issued.
And Nikole, if the House passes both bills today, only one would be eligible to become law because only the infrastructure bill has been passed by the Senate. So is the social and climate plan on track for approval? What would be the next step if it passes in the House?
Well, I think right now, the question today has been whether or not there's approval to just get it through the House. I mean, quite frankly, as far as most members were concerned, they thought that the votes were there. I had the chairman of the Rules Committee, Congressman McGovern, tell me, look, I assumed people were on board with this package. And as I mentioned, there was a lot of wrangling this morning and concern among some members about potentially moving forward. So, this is not exactly how leadership gamed this out. So really, it still is a test as far as the House is concerned. And look, it could potentially be a heavier lift in the Senate because, as our colleague Steve mentioned in his piece, it is a scenario where you have some other moderate members, most notably folks like Senator Manchin, who have been very clear that they don't like some elements of the House bill. For instance, paid leave was added back in. There is Medicare expansion to cover hearing benefits, which is something that Senator Manchin has been opposed to. There have been efforts to try to put immigration provisions in this package. So all of those things, we don't know if those will kind of survive once this bill gets over to the Senate, because at the end of the day, it will take every senator, all 50 senators, to be in lockstep on this if ultimately it is intended to make it to the president's desk.
So what will happen next, if it finally does get through a House vote successfully? What will be the next step?
So in terms of the House vote, well, as you mentioned, with respect to the infrastructure bill, this is the final step for that. And so if that does clear the House, then of course we will see that head to the president's desk. And we're talking about $1.2 trillion in funding that in essence would pay for traditional infrastructure, helping to fix some of the nation's crumbling roads, bridges, waterways, rails, broadband, etc. In terms of the president's social spending package, as I mentioned, this is something that will have to get assessed by the Senate. It has to go through what's called a bird bath, if you will, to make sure that it meets the standard for reconciliation, because that is a very strict, narrow budgetary procedure. And so, depending on how that goes, some things could be stripped away, or some things may not be able to remain in that bill if it doesn't pass that test. Not to mention, again, the concerns expressed by senators like Senator Manchin. So, this still has a ways to go to make it to the finish line. Lawmakers really would like to get this done before the holidays if they can. Certainly the president and the White House remain eager. So again, I know it's been a very long process. All I can say for people who are mothers out there, it's like having a baby, right? You're just waiting for that date.
Any way you
case,
slice
we've passed it.
Yeah. I mean, any way you slice it, there's a longer journey ahead for the Build Back Better plan than for the infrastructure bill. We got that. All right. Nikole Killion on Capitol Hill. Thank you so much.
All right. You bet.